Good evening, councillors. It's 7 o'clock by watch. Welcome to the planning committee, those that are in the gallery tonight, the members of the press and those that may be online watching from home. Okay, first item on the agenda for tonight. Do we have any apologies? Apologies, that's good. Have we got any declarations of interest in the agenda item tonight? Okay, see that's no. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Do we consider those as an accurate and true record of the events of the last planning meeting? And show hands, please. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. That brings us on to item 4 on the agenda. Application for major development, Seabridge Community Education Centre, Borough Lane, Newcastle. A presentation on this. Follows.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for planning permission for the reserved matters of the development of the former Seabridge Centre residential development following the granting of outline planning permission at appeal. As members will recall from the presentation to the last meeting of the committee, the principle of the development of the site, which is edged in red on the plan screen, for up to 55 dwellings, as well as the position of the vehicular access from Ashway, just here to the south of the site, has already been deemed acceptable. So the plan on the screen now shows the site layout that was previously considered by members at the last committee meeting. So there's been no changes in relation to the number, position or design of the dwellings within the site. The access point and internal road layout also remains unaltered. Members will recall that the application was deferred at the last meeting following a number of concerns, namely the extent of the unadopted roads and then collection distances, with a focus in particular on plot 43, which is over here to the eastern part of the site, the positioning of the substation, the loss of trees, and clarification on uses and types of boundary treatment. Having considered these points, the applicants have sought to address these concerns, and there have been some minor changes to the site layout. So the first change is that the position of the substation has been revised. So it was here where this red circle is, adjacent to the eastern boundary of the site, with number 40 Borough Lane here. But it's now being repositioned over to that point there. So it's within the area of public open space, and to the rear is now, rather than a residential dwelling, is an area of incidental open space associated with the primary school. Officers raised no objections to the new position from an amenity or design perspective, but it should also be noted to members that permitted development rights do exist for the construction of substations. And the agent has confirmed in their supporting statement that the substation in either the revised or original position would qualify as permitted development, which provides a genuine fallback position. A further point raised by members at the previous committee meeting was the extent of unadopted roads and the distance that occupants of plots positioned on those roads would have to travel to a bin collection point. Particular concern was raised regarding plot 43. One that I pointed out previously on the far right of the screen. The applicants have considered the concerns of members and provided an updated adopted road layout, which has increased the section. Yeah, I'll stick with this one for now, which has increased the adaptable surface leading towards plot 43 by 9 metres to reduce the distance that properties positioned on this area of unadopted road would have to travel to take their bins to a bin collection point. In a supporting statement, the applicants have set out that any further extension of the adopted road in this location would erode the level of open space provided, reduce the length of the cycle footway link, and result in the loss of the only retained tree within the site. The level of remaining unadopted roads is considered by officers to be acceptable. It's important to note that the use of unadopted roads within residential development schemes is commonplace and has a number of benefits. The Highway Authority have considered the proposed internal road layout and the extent of unadoptable roads and have raised no objections from a highway safety perspective. It stands that the majority of the road network internally will be designed to an adoptable standard, and neither officers nor statutory consultees have any objections to this element of the scheme. This is just pointing out this is the additional length of an adopted highway, which is, as referred to previously, an additional 9 metres. So this slide shows the refuse collection strategy. The changes that have been made to the extensive unadopted road towards the eastern area of the site has reduced the distance that plot 43 would have to take their bin from 28 metres on the previous plan to 18 metres. The total number of properties that would be sited on an unadopted road and have to take their refuse to a bin collection point would be 8, and these are the ones that you can see with the yellow dots on them. Officers consider that the position of the bin collection points as proposed is acceptable, and that the distances involved are also appropriate. It is worth noting that building regulations recommend a maximum of 30 metres for occupiers of a dwelling to move their bin, and that legislation is in place to ensure that buildings are stable, healthy and high performing. These conditions for refuse collection will be known at the time of purchase for any future occupants. And yes, so officers consider that the scheme is acceptable in that regard. At the previous meeting, members raised concerns with the extent of tree loss on the site. No changes have been made since the previous meeting in this regard, but the agenda report sets out the reasoning for this. The site has a number of constraints that have limited the ability to retain trees, mainly the levels of the site and the improved position of the access points. In addition to this, it must be noted that a density of up to 55 dwellings has been permitted on the site, and during the appeal, the inspector raised no objections to this level of development in relation to the retention of existing trees. There were also no conditions on the outline permission that stipulated that trees must be retained as part of any reserve matters application. So during the course of the application, the applicants have acknowledged the level of tree loss, namely the fact that category B trees are proposed for removal, and has in response provided an updated and robust landscaping scheme. This would see a notable amount of tree planting throughout the site, which you can see on the screen now. In both areas of public space and private gardens, which in time would provide a net gain in the level of planting within the site. In addition, the site is a brownfield site, and so the level of landscaping and soft planting proposed would be a significant uplift over the existing arrangement. The final issue raised in the discussions at the last meeting was in relation to boundary treatments. I've displayed this plan at the previous meeting, but the agents has clarified that, because I think the particular concern was about where boundary treatments would be created that would be against existing boundaries, and the agents clarified that such scenarios would not leads to a dual boundary treatment. So effectively there wouldn't be any area wrong claims and potentially unmaintained land between them. So what is proposed is that all boundaries would be integrated where possible with the existing arrangements. And where this can't take place, for example, if the existing boundary treatment is unsuitable or needs repairing, then an entirely new boundary treatment would be installed at the developer's expense. So in summary, it's considered that where possible, the applicant has sought to address the issue raised by members and that all other concerns have been suitably justified. The scheme represents a well-designed residential development on a brownfield site and in an established residential area. There are no objections on the grounds of amenity or highway safety, and so the scheme is recommended for approval.
Thank you for that presentation, Rachel. Before I open it up to members, we have a speaker. And this is supporter of the scheme, Mrs. Eleanor Lovett. Would you like to come forward, please?
Which one?
Take your pick. You have 5 minutes to make your case. After 4 minutes, you'll be reminded you've got a minute left. You may begin when ready. Press the button as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and committee members. I'm Eleanor Lovett of Claremont Planning. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to speak again on behalf of the applicant, History Homes, in support of the reserve matters application for 53 dwellings on the former Seabridge Centre. History Homes is a national house builder with a strong reputation for high quality residential development. The Seabridge Centre closed several years ago and the buildings were all demolished prior to the submission of this application. The site is within the urban area and represents a highly sustainable brownfield site, which both national and local planning policy support for redevelopment. This application seeks approval for reserve matters following the grant of outline permission for 55 dwellings in 2020. That permission confirmed the principle of residential development as acceptable and approved the access from Ash Way. This application is therefore only seeking consent for details relating to layout, scale, appearance and landscaping. Following committee, the applicant has considered the feedback provided and discussed this further with officers, leading to some improvements to the proposals as presented this evening. This is focused on the northeastern corner of the site and the length of private drive serving plot 43 and the location of the substation. The applicant considered whether the adoptable road at the required width could be extended all the way to plot 43. However, not only would this require removal of the large Norwegian maple tree, it would also significantly reduce open space, whilst noise and headlights from bin lorries and other vehicles traversing this length of road would impact on the rear garden of the property at number 40 Row Lane. The adoptable road has, however, been extended slightly further eastwards, reducing the length of private drive and the number of plot access via private drives. Bin collection point has also been relocated, reducing the bin drag distance for plot 43. This maintains the same level of public open space as previously and enables retention of the Norwegian maple. This revised arrangement has been discussed with officers at highways to ensure the support for the amended road layout. It should be recognised that private drives are an acceptable road typology and can be popular with residents, with benefits including more opportunities for soft landscaping and slower vehicle speeds due to shared surfaces. Concerns were also raised by members last time regarding the proximity of the substation to existing residential property. Through history of improvements to the layout, the substation has been relocated away from properties on Row Lane and is now proposed adjacent to plots 37 and 38. While substations are permitted to development and consent is not required through this application, History is committed to providing the substation in this location and hopes that this provides assurance that the substation won't impact on existing properties. The proposals ensure a positive relationship in terms of both privacy and outlook for both future and existing residents. Whilst concerns regarding overshadowing on properties on Row Lane were identified, a shadow study has been conducted as part of this application to demonstrate that post-development there wouldn't be any impact on the dwellings at 40 and 42 Row Lane, and only a very minor impact in terms of shadowing would be on part of the garden at 40 Row Lane, even when light levels are poorest in the winter. The proposals are therefore fully consistent with planning policy on matters such as separation distances, residential amenity, and design standards. The removal of existing trees was also queried by members previously. Whilst the applicant did seek to retain existing trees as part of the detailed design process, the technical constraints and requirements of the outline consent in respect of access have resulted in the proposed removal of trees. The principle of this has been agreed with officers during pre-application discussions and through this application. To offset the losses, the landscaping scheme concerns extensive tree planting of differing maturities and species will be delivered to compensate, with a condition requiring precise details of proposed planting to be secured as part of the consent, as well as committing Vistry to replacement trees if they are damaged or die within 5 years. Concerns had also been raised regarding boundary treatments. The proposed boundary treatments include timber post-border fencing, large flat fencing, and retaining walls. Where boundary treatments are proposed to existing fencing, Vistry will consult with neighbouring residents and ensure that poor quality fencing is replaced. Where existing fencing is adequate, this will be incorporated into the boundary, avoiding parallel fence lines. This is also secured by condition, ensuring that further detailed consideration will be given to fence lines prior to their installation. It's hoped that this speech, alongside officer's presentation, has demonstrated that following the previous meeting, we have listened to the concerns and tried to respond or amend the scheme where feasible. Overall, Vistry strongly believes this scheme would deliver a high-quality residential development on this vacant brownfield site in the urban area. It's considered that the proposals are wholly compliant with adopted planning policy and guidance and positively build on the principles permitted at outline stage. It's reiterated that this application seeks approval of reserve matters, and therefore members should only be considering layout, scale, appearance and landscaping, as well as recognising the presumption in favour of sustainable development, and that this application is wholly consistent with planning policy. It's hoped that members will recognise this and support the scheme so the site can be brought forward to deliver 53 new family homes at the former Cedric Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. We're opening it up to members, debate. Just wish to say on record that I think it's to be commended that the applicant has listened to members at the previous meeting and has worked with officers to try and iron out some of the issues that arose from the meeting previously. That's to be commended, and I wish a lot more developers would enter into that sort of arrangement where they were prepared to work with members and officers alike. So members, over to you. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. Like you, I'm happy to acknowledge the effort that the applicant has gone to engage with concerns that were raised by members. We did have an extensive discussion about this at the last meeting. I wish to go into huge detail, although I do note we're still in the position of not having quite as much adopted highway as some of us here would like. We're told we could have more, but it will be at the cost of the one remaining tree that is due to be retained. I'm not sure that's true. I think that alternative solutions are available, albeit they are not solutions that are available to us today. The applicant would have to make more substantial changes than I think they are willing to make. So while a lot of it is welcome, the movement of the electricity substation, the careful thought that's gone into refuse collection points. I still have concerns about block 43. I know that the residents nearby do, and I note that no changes have been proposed to that. On that basis, I don't feel able to vote for the scheme that's in front of us tonight. However, I would struggle to propose refusing this application, knowing, as I do, that in many ways the application is policy compliant, and it's difficult for me to frame an objection in that way, except to say that the residents there, I know, would not be supportive of what's in front of us, and I can't vote for it tonight, so I won't.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Holland, and your points duly noted. Councillor Speakers. Okay, no other speakers. I'll Do you have any proposals then in that? In terms of supporting or objecting?
With the recommendations.
So, okay, right, I'll make the move that, I'll, support this. Do I have a second? Councillor Williams, thank you. We have a proposer and a seconder for this, to be approved. We'll see a counter proposal. Councillor Williams,
Say again, result no one else speak. Previous, go on, carry on.
I was about to ask you, do we have counter? All round. Can't see one, so, okay, so moved and seconded. Can I see a show of hands in support of that one? Bench please indicate. Thank you. See those against? Any abstentions? That item is passed. Thank you, members. Brings us on to item number 5 on the agenda, pages 23 to 34. The agenda pack. Application for major development, 7 Victoria Street, Newcastle-under-Lyme. Members won't fail to notice that that was also on previous planning committee. Charles is going to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks planning permission for a 3-storey apartment block, which will be comprised of 12 residential units. So this application was deferred from the last committee meeting to allow the opportunity to address concerns raised with regards to the proposals, visual appearance and parking provision. So rather than providing a full overview of the scheme, again, I'll just focus on these 2 matters. So with respect to the visual appearance, the applicant has taken on board the concerns raised by members of the committee, especially in regards to the zinc cladding, which was to be proposed in the front and rear elevations. You can see on the top drawing, that was the previous proposal with the section at the top there, the zinc cladding. And this is the scheme now as proposed below. So the zinc cladding was essentially removed and replaced with a more traditional red brick. Officers consider that this arrangement is more sympathetic to the street scene and the traditional appearance of the neighbouring properties in general, and it creates a less busy arrangement and is therefore welcomed in design terms. The only other external change is a small drop between the connecting sections of the 2 parts of the property, which you can see here. This alteration will soften some of the massing of the proposal, will provide a clearer definition between the 2 parts of the proposal. With the rear elevations of the property, again, you can see some cladding at the top there, which will be removed again. So I've shown 3D mock-up drawings. Again, there's nothing noticeable change to be on this elevation here in the bottom right drawing. So in all other respects, it's considered that the proposal is still accessible in design terms. With respect to parking provision, the applicant has noted the concerns raised by members of the committee and has provided additional information to justify the parking arrangements on the site. The additional information notes that on-street car parking demands for nearby highways are heavily influenced by staff and visitor parking from the nearby hospital. This demand will soon be lessened through the construction of a new 1,700 space multi-storey car park at the hospital. Further emphasis was put on the transport assessment submitted in the proposal and how this meets with the requirements of national policies set out within the NPPF. So, although no additional parking provision is proposed on the site, the National Plan Policy Framework is clear that development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if the impacts on the road network would be severe. Shortfall of one parking space in this case, in combination with the sustainable location of the proposal and the lack of any objections from the highway authority, but not, in the opinion of officers, amount to a severe impact. And the refusal on highway grounds cannot therefore be sustained. Proposal is therefore still brought to this committee with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Charles. I believe we have a speaker on this item. Mr. Ian Miller. Board, sir. Same rules apply. And 5 minutes to make your address. 4 minutes should be reminded you've got a minute back. You may speak when you want to start.
Members, thank you very much for allowing me to speak in respect to this application that is recommended for approval by your officers this evening. My name is Ian Miller and I'm a director of Cameron Rose Associates, a local independent transport planning consultancy based here in Newcastle. I'm very familiar with the site, the surrounding area and residential parking opportunities and constraints. We are absolutely aware that the implications of having badly designed development, parking or too little parking provision can have serious effects on highway safety as a result of on-street parking. However, over-provision can result in poor design, wasted space and an apparent encouragement to use cars in preference to walking, cycling and public transport. It is therefore critical to the success of well-planned development, particularly in close proximity to town centres, that car parking provision is derived accurately with due consideration to surrounding environments and constraints. The premise of current residential parking arrangements is predicated on advice to local planning authorities that first appeared, nearly 20 years ago in 2006, reinstated in 2011 in PBS 3 and remains unchanged today in paragraph 111 of the National Planning Policy Framework, which states, if setting local parking standards for residential and non-residential developments, policy should take into account accessibility to the development, type, mix and use of the development, availability of and the opportunities for public transport, local car ownership levels, and, this was a new item, the need to ensure adequate provision of space for charging, plug-in and other ultra-low emission vehicles. It is therefore apparent that for nearly 20 years, the provision of car parking spaces for residential development has been predicated on promoting sustainable modes rather than providing car. But in doing so, consideration must be given to good design. I recognise the importance of maintaining an efficient and safe highway network. Therefore, in order to meet local and national policy, the applicant appointed Cameron Rose Associates to assess the parking needs of the development proposals. Our findings are supported by the local highway authority, who states in their full MEPs, I accept the location as a sustainable location in terms of transport, and therefore some relaxation, with regards to parking, is acceptable. Staffordshire County Council accordingly raised no objections to the proposals, but placed as a condition on permission for the car parking provision to be set out in accordance with the approved drawings. The assessment undertaken to establish this position has been predicated on a robust assessment of car ownership for the site's location within the lowest output area of the 2011 census data. The data analysis established that in total there would be a demand for 6 car parking spaces at the development site. This is based on car ownership data for that area. Accordingly, it's based on this calculation that development proposals have been derived. Furthermore, it suggests that there is a higher level of parking demand for this site would need to be supported by evidence base. And today, no such evidence presented by planners or the highway authority to support our position. We are aware of the on-street parking demand caused by the neighbouring hospital. This external factor can result in motivational bias when considering development in this area. But it must be kept in mind that this external factor in no way amends the assessment of residential development parking demand. To do so would be seeking to draw a parallel between 2 unrelated functions, particularly in advance of the completion of the 1700 space car park we've already heard about. Using paragraph 111 of the National Planning Policy Framework as a planning test, it can be concluded unequivocally that 1. Site's location and access to sustainable travel infrastructure meets the test set out in paragraph 11A and 11C. Occupation of proposed apartments will include marketing towards key workers, given the location benefits from its close proximity to the Royal State University Hospital, which is approximately 8 minutes on foot from the development site, thus meeting paragraph 113 test. Condition 10 of the committee report refers to electric vehicle charging provision, thus meeting the paragraph 111E test. Finally, the test set out at paragraph 111D, that being car ownership, has been considered in the light of the aforementioned census data and agreed by both the local highway authority and the local planning authority. In conclusion, there are no fundamental reasons why planning application should be refused on the grounds of car parking provision, as it meets the national planning policy framework tests. To consider otherwise demonstrates an unconscious, emotionally loaded motivational bias based on a predisposed view of on-street car parking demand arising from the displaced hospital park. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. May you return to your seat, please? Okay, now let me talk to debate. Members. You councillor Williams.
This was my working 10.
Councillor George.
Yeah, we're done. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, really pleased that the material has been changed from cladding to traditional brick. Could you just remind me the roofing material, especially on the pitched roof? What's not the honestly, I mean, if it is going to be the traditional tiles or pan tiles, whatever, they're similar colour that brings out the street scene, no problem. That's the case. Can we put that as a condition?
Just for clarity, I don't think it is the traditional tile. I think it is a similar colour, sounds like grey, but it's again more of a sort of like roof style rather than a traditional tile. That being said, good condition these materials.
Like shade. To
Are you not going to
sensory response, yeah. If what material, I'll be interested on that material and what the coloring that will be. Come condition is from that.
You like to see a condition? on
Yes, can that come condition? Says any difference. You know, like on the point we change the cladding to brick. The roof scheme cladding, that's good. We lost that view of the particular area. It's traditional brick and tile roof. I'm not saying it's clay tiles, but something similar.
Thank you, councillor Williams. Councillor Holmes and then councillor.
Thank you, Chair. If it's helpful, I'd be minded to move a recommendation that we include a condition giving our officers some latitude to work with the applicants on this. I wouldn't want to see us condition a specific material or even a specific colour. That's helpful.
Thank you, councillor Holmes. That's very helpful. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Chairman. Delighted that the design has been changed and the materials I think they've presented today. My opinion is much more satisfactory. I personally would not pursue the parking matter. I think that there's some pretty convincing arguments not to turn down the application on those grounds. I'm also pleased that the suggestion that was made at the last meeting that we looked at actually trying to use some of the green space parking hasn't been pursued, because I think that would give completely the wrong signal to developers. I thought that the green space, communal garden, whatever term that you use, Chairman, was one of the strong points of the application, and I'm glad to see that green space is being left intact. So I'm satisfied with the arguments that I've heard seen.
Thank you, councillor Gordon. Councillor Peake.
It's making interesting blinking noises, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps if I think I can throw my voice sufficiently because there are little things in the ceiling pick it up, don't they? For the here we are. Thank you, Councillor Holland. Very, very brief thing. I just could say I too welcome what has been done for the appearance of this building. I also share to some degree, however, Councillor Williams' concern. It would be a great shame, I think, were we to remove the cladding from the side of the building to have a metallic substance on the roof, which then jarred with the rest of the roofing going up. After all, I think here we've got to remember that we are talking about a rising street. It's not on the level. If it was on the level, the roof would not be as visible as it will be if one stands on the main road and looks up the street. Therefore, I would urge officers to think about this. Particularly, I think the important thing here is to make sure that if you like the material, whatever it is of the correct colour, but also has a sort of matte finish so that it doesn't gleam in contrast to what's adjacent to it. Other than that, I share Councillor Gorton's views about what we've heard about the parking this evening, and even if some of us have some misgivings about that, I think those misgivings would not hold water were this to go to appeal. So I'm very pleased the developer has moved in the direction that I was worried about last time in terms of the facing of the side of the building. I hope, given that spirit, that some thought can be given with our officers to consideration with roofing material as well. But otherwise, with the proviso that that discussion is held, I would be happy to support this application. I'll now give Councillor Holland this little gizmo back. He's got one. He's got two. That's really easy.
Councillor Seer. Thank you. Hey, Councillor Chris.
Oh, mine's not. Mine's dead as well. So yes, you can have the one that definitely works. What happened to the ceiling? They're still there. Or they're just very bad.
This one's like, hello.
That's gone.
Not too bad. Just off the top of my, thank you, Chair. Off the top of my head, sorry, Mr. Are the car parking spaces allocated to particular flats?
No, they're not charging that part to me. Yeah, that will we go beyond that control. It'll be something for the management.
I was just thinking aloud. If you purchase or move into a flat that you know you've got a car parking space for, then you'll bring your car. If it's sort of first come first serve, I think everyone's likely to bring a car. But if say 5 that are allocated to the doubles and 7 say well they don't, are more people likely to plan not to have a car? I don't know if that makes any sense. And whether that's useful in any way whatsoever.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Robbie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also convinced pretty much that although one short of the parking space, if there's not sufficient dearth of parking spaces to mean that we've got to turn it down on that basis. There have been complaints about the potential for noise from adjacent properties, about the fact that it will be more population dense if there are 12 apartments there. I would support this application on the basis of what we've heard tonight. But as usual, I think monitoring the situation and making sure that the things that we've said tonight are adhered to, and that there is continued monitoring of how the development's working out in practice. I think as long as that is maintained, and it will be, I don't see a problem with it. I'd like to see a problem with it because it's right near the main road. And, cars don't stay parked. They keep weaving in and out at strange times of the day. You don't just look at a street with people parked in it wherever they're from, because the point about parking it there is to get in and get out. And I think there will be impacts on, on road safety in practice. But in theory, the appropriate checks and balances have been done, and I think we would be on a hiding to nothing if we turned it down on this basis. No, it's heart and head. My head says we've got to accept it because there isn't much of an alternative and there's no proof to the contrary. My heart says rein it in a bit or provide an extra, use some sort of extra parking space, put the profit down a bit and stick a bit more space in it, either for parking or, leisure or whatever it is, so an open space there. But I don't think that's going to happen. It's just a matter of balancing what we hope goes on and what will go on. If there's anything strange that happens that impacts on the original budget, and there are going to be any changes to the building materials or whatever, in the face of anything that's turns up, we need to be continually informed about it. So one would approve, but not without certain conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Brockie. Any members wishing to speak? Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. I'm mindful of the comments that the members have made. I'd like to move the recommendations as printed with the additional condition that prior to commencement, our officers agree with the applicant a suitable finishing material for the roof in line with the comments that have been expressed by members tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. Do we see a seconder for Councillor Holland's proposal? Councillor Brockie. Members wish to show hands, please, in support of the recommendation. Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you. That item is moved. Wish to declare a record. Again, thank you to the developer for working with officers on this one to get it over the line. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 6. We found on pages 35 to 44 of the agenda pack. Application for major development, Aldi, Liverpool Road, Kidsgrove. This item includes a supplementary report. There's a chance to digest that report. Hand over officers for presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application relating to Aldi, the Aldi store in Kidsgrove. And full planning permission is sought to vary conditions 8, 9 and 10 of the original planning permission. The application seeks to vary condition 8, which would enable the store to open until 10 PM on weekdays and Saturdays rather than 8 PM as originally permitted. However, an application to approve this same variation to the opening hours was granted by the Commission in 2012, and therefore the requested variation to condition 8 has already been agreed. Condition 9 restricts deliveries to the store to between 8 AM and 10 PM Monday to Saturday, and the proposal is to have no restrictions on the hours of deliveries on those days. Condition 10 restricts the parking of refrigeration vehicles with cooling equipment in operation to between 7 AM and 11 PM Monday to Sunday. And again, the proposal seeks to remove any restrictions. So this is the layout of the site. So Liverpool Road across here at the front, car park over to the left, and then round to the back. Here is the area where the loading bay is, and then down this side here is extensive tree planting. There are residential properties located to the north and the south. But importantly, planning permission has also been granted for residential development to the east of the supermarket, and that was granted in 2022. So this is the scheme that has had planning permission, which remains extant, so it could be implemented at any time, but hasn't yet commenced. So this is the landscaping that we saw on the previous plan. So an acoustic report submitted with the application initially assessed the impacts on the dwellings to the north and the south of the site, but following a request from environmental health, additional information has been submitted which considers the potential impacts on the new development to the east. This is a photo showing you to the rear of the site, the loading bay. And you can see in the background there the substantial tree planting. So there are measures currently in place which are set out in more detail in the report, which effectively enable loading and unloading to only take place within the building, therefore significantly reducing the extent that noise could be heard at any nearby receptors. The noise impact assessment states that when taking the site's context into consideration, it's been demonstrated that any noise generated would have little or no impact on the nearest noise-sensitive receptor. So your officers are recommending that the variation to the conditions is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to members. Councillor Bird next. Paul. You got your working well?
I think so, just think.
Have this one, it's into. Definitely not.
Right, I'm working now. There has been some concerns about this, but I think it's more to do with, are there more lorries planned to be coming in, or is it the same lorries but at different times? Because the road outside the main road, the embedded that goes down by Aldi is all broken off, and the residents are saying they think it's due to all these extra lorries coming down. So will there be any extra lorries?
No, there's no increase in the number of deliveries proposed. It's just simply to allow deliveries across the whole 24-hour period. The store receives on average 3 to 4 deliveries per 24-hour period, as well as daily deliveries of milk and bread, etc., and fresh produce. But yeah, there's no proposed increase in that.
Thank you.
Any other councillors wishing to speak? In that case, now if there's any more speakers, I'm happy to propose application recommendations as printed. Do I see a seconder? Councillor Jane Burnett. Thank you. Do I see any council proposals? No. Heard the proposal and seconder. Can you show of hands, please? Favour. And that's unanimous. That item is approved. Thank you. Brings us to item 7 on the agenda. The supplementary report on this, and our officers will read out recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. So it's just an update really. So the applicant has requested some additional time to allow them to consider and provide a response to the conditions suggested by the Highways Authority. Because this request is reasonable, and then we therefore would ask the committee to allow the application to be deferred to allow it be deliberation.
Thank you, Charles. I think that's eminently acceptable to me anyway. Can I see the members show of hands in support of this item? Thank you. That's unanimous. Item is deferred. That brings us on to item 8 of the agenda. Application for minor development, shopping mall, York Station, Newcastle, pages 55 to 64, your agenda pack. Goes on.
This application is for full planning permission for the demolition of much of the existing York Place shopping centre to facilitate the conversion to a mixed-use residential and retail scheme. I think all members are aware of York Place and where it is, at the junction of High Street and Merrill Street there. Again, I'm sure members are aware of what the building looks like, but just to remind you, there's a photo of it in all its glory. So the site lies within the Newcastle Town Centre conservation area, and the proposed works involve the building being stripped back to its primary structural frame and slab, but any supporting structural work to be retained where it supports the primary frame. The masonry of the frontage to Bog Street West and the ground level retaining structure in the eastern extent of the site is also to be retained. So on the plan here, the areas shown in blue are the areas of double skin masonry wall that are to be retained. The red is where full demolition of the primary frame is proposed down to ground level. The green that you can see down here is a masonry facade to be retained, and the yellow, the orange colour around there is the ground level retaining structure to be kept in place. So the agenda report sets out that the site is within the conservation area, and it assesses the proposal in relation to local and national policy on demolition within conservation areas. But the conclusion is that we consider that the demolition would result in a low and temporary level of less than substantial harm to the conservation area, which would be reduced by visual containment by appropriate hoardings, and therefore no objection is raised to the demolition of the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Over to the members for debate. Councillor Field.
It's working this time, Mr. Chairman. And comforting. Yes, well, as someone who was keen on seeing the demise of this building last time round, I'm happy to support this application. There's one thing I've already raised with officers, and in fact I raised this the last time when we had a different proposal in front of us. I don't know how quickly the developer will affect this. I suspect quite quickly. I've seen them at work near Stoke railway station on my way to work at Stockport. They do move rapidly. But manifestly, that this adjacent to this building, of course, is the town centre. And I think we do need to discuss with the developer, and I suspect the developer will be more than happy to do this, that were these works to be in place in November, that the hoardings would be of a respectful sort at that juncture, and that the ambience, the serious ambience of Remembrance Day will be preserved while those works were going on. That's my only reservation on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Field, and I am inclined to agree. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. I agree fully with what Councillor Pearce just said. I'm always very sympathetic and respectful of the comments and concerns raised by the Conservation Advisory Working Party. On this occasion, it demonstrates that if something's around for long enough, somebody will develop an affection for it, and there is some degree of affection for the building that's currently there among members of the Working Party. The Conservation Officer has been quite clear. I think this is a temporary detriment to the conservation area of the town centre, and what is replacing this building will be an improvement. And on that basis, I think we should approve the application in front of us.
The other members wishing to speak? Councillor Williams, are you indicating? Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Are you raising your hand? Sorry.
No.
Move it, Chair.
I agree with, if you want, yeah, I'll say something, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Councillor Fear. And my concern first, especially on now on Sunday, to the areas, a lot of people come down to the Senate House and with the parade. So, in keeping, I mean, you'll see the structure will stick above the hoardings that are going to go up. And a little bit concerned with the taking up of the footways. I mean, the right crop are taking quite a lot of the footways up. So I'll be watching that. There's enough room for people to walk through and people with disabilities on in their mobility scooters. So hopefully it'll be I agree with what's been said. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other councillors wishing to speak on this? Okay, so we've had it as a proposed, is that a proposal and councillor Fear?
It is indeed, Mr. Chairman.
Are you happy to second that, councillor?
Yes.
So we've had it proposed that we approve this, subject to the conditions, were particularly detailed to the hoardings. Those who want to support this application, can I see a show of hands? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That item is approved. Brings us swiftly on to item 9. It's the Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council 5-year land supply update. 2023 to 2028. Says over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And the report in front of you is to outline our assessment of our 5-year land supply in respect of development potential in the borough. There's a requirement for us to provide 5-year supply unless we have an up-to-date local plan, which at the time of examination had a 5-year supply within it. So you can see where the governments are very clear in their guidance on local authorities having an up-to-date local plan when it comes to housing land supply. Obviously, owners again will be aware that we are moving swiftly to bring an emerging local plan to council in July, which hopefully will then go up for consultation before submission to the Secretary of State. So in the absence of an up-to-date current local planning authorities are required to undertake this assessment, having regard to a standard methodology set out in the National Planning Policy Programme, based on assessing the need against obsolete sites that are available. Importantly, it's worth noting that from December 2023, when the revised NPPF was published, there is a caveat within that, which I think is important to bear in mind. So for those local planning authorities at December 2023 with an emerging local plan that had reached Reg 18 stage or is in examination, we only need to show a 4-year supply for 2 years from that December date. But that applies to Newcastle Borough Council. And that's important when we come to assess planning implications in the future, if you are comfortable with our 5-year land supply situation tonight and set out in the report. So to be clear, when we talk about 5 years supply, we are talking about sites that are available now and will bring forward developments within 5 years. That is critical. That's part of the assessment that we undertake. We've done that assessment and we've established that from March 23 to March 28, we can show a supply of 5.26 years against the need of 340 dwellings per annum. In terms of units, that's 1,790 units against the need of 1,700 for 5 years, the 4-year requirement of 1,360. So members, if you are comfortable with the report in front of you, I would recommend that you approve our position statement as of tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Members wish to speak on this item. Councillor Bryan, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question regarding the student properties. I know before they have been included. Can we be reassured that they will be moving forward and this wouldn't change? Thank you.
Through Chair, yes, student accommodation is, as per the reports, included within the supply. And obviously, we expect those sites where we've approved student accommodations come forward. So that's it. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. This is a welcome report. I want to put that on the record. Government only asks two things of local authorities. They say you have to demonstrate your 5-year land supply of housing and you should have an up-to-date adopted roadmap plan. And this council is making progress towards the second of those items. Perhaps not as fast as I would like, but then nothing happens as fast as I would like. This is a welcome report. Even though we are perhaps only obliged to demonstrate 4 years because of the fact that we're at 18 stage or beyond it, and we are still able to demonstrate more than 5 years. That is a position you need to be in. And if, like me, you want to shape development and have proper control over things in this borough, and you want to protect our green spaces, this is the position that we need to be in. I'm reassured that we are in that position, and I welcome the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holland. I echo your sentiments on that, particularly with the emphasis on control. I would say in the way that development is shaped within our borough. I think that's something that we've all been aware hasn't been in place before, and I welcome this report. So, members, without any other speakers, are we content to receive this report as printed? See a show of hands, please, in support of that. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda tonight is the application for financial assistance historic buildings grant to Ashley Congregational Church.
I have a presentation to just set out in the report, but we do have a supplementary report which I believe was circulated to members. Just letting out that the Conservation Advisory Working Party recommended that the grant is offered to the
Future members. Councillor Pearce.
Happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Happy to second that. Any other speakers on this item? Councillor Gordon.
Just a question, Chair, really, from my own information. The supplementary report from the Conservation Advisory Working Party recommends acceptance, but it says subject to standard conditions. Could the officer advise me what those standard conditions are?
Unfortunately, no, I can't. I'm afraid.
Is it something the committee should worry about?
I'm sure it is. But what I can do is I will ask Louise, our conservation officer, the answer to that, and I will let you know in the email. Don't know whether other members wish to know as well. Apologies, I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you, Rachel. Are you satisfied with that? Sounds cool. Any other members wish to speak on this item? No, okay, then the item has been proposed and seconded. Can I see a show of hands in support of it? That's unanimous. That item has moved. Thank you. This time of year brings us to item 11 on the agenda, and that is the planning committee site visits for the forthcoming year. I take it the members have a chance to read these and look at these. Do we have any comments on those? Can't see any hands or indications to speak on this matter. Therefore, happy to propose that we accept the report as written. The committee site visit dates. Can I see show of hands in support of those, please? And that item is passed unanimously. Thank you. Item 12 on the agenda is Firebox Cottage. Deal. Do we have any further updates? No further updates. Our members intend to keep this on the agenda in 2 months' time and bring it back in. To show of hands and support, so that's the case. Councillor Dave Jones.
Thank you.
You are alive.
I am. Been trying. I know the contents of the report. Thank the officers for this. And officers will be aware, and I'm happy should officers feel it necessary that we move to a private discussion on this should it be needed. But there has been a significant amount of activity on this site over the last couple of weeks. I've received a number of concerns from residents with regards to the volume of activity occurring there, the volume of vehicles there, a commercial vehicle that's sited there that has no planning permission to be there. And on top of that, threats of multiple caravans being parked there. There have been more than a permitted number of caravans parked there on occasion. And there are threats of additional caravans being parked there. This has been a real horrid situation for those residents who have dealt with this. Notwithstanding some elements of this, they would need to go via the police over behaviours. But that said, this is a site where the owner of the site has been non-compliant. We say on this report that we're going to take enforcement action. The residents see these reports and are starting to pull their hair out that nothing is actually happening. There's concerns that the site might be sold to somebody else, which then brings in other legal concerns regarding potential avenues there. So I think really I could do with a level of assurance to the residents who, quite frankly, have gone through this repeatedly, time and time again, because they really are starting to worry.
We do have some updates that we can give you, but we would have to go to closed meeting if you want us to do that. So
I'm happy to move that we do that.
I'll, the degree of transparency and openness, I'll agree also to that, Councillor Jones. We move to closed session, and this is the last item on the agenda this evening. Are members in support of this?
Happy with that, Mr. Chairman. One thing I draw your attention to, I'm sure you're aware of anyway, is the little microphones in the ceiling will